That's like, makes my head spin, actually, that nothing in my world of form is the content true. I don't even know how to perceive that.
The form, whatever the effect of the form is, it cannot lead to any form of truth whatsoever. Until the form is abandoned and truth is pursued. Until the truth is pursued.
Yeah, because we make meaning out of a meaningless world.
Let's say I go to a golf course and I go to a really great country club and I buy the right clubs and I even get my strokes down and I've got it and I'm par, whatever you want to call it, and so I'm a great golfer. The forms of it aren't going to do anything for me. But if at some point I decide, you know what, I'm sick of playing the game of golf as a formal, impressing people either with my scores or my clothes or my membership.
Okay.
I want the zen of golf. And I approach it and I queue up and I go deeper within myself and asking myself, who's doing this and how are we doing this? And we start to look what we're really doing in the little ball and what the little ball means. And the thing is, golf does lead itself. There is a content to golf, and it can be a spiritual transformative process. I'm just using it as an example. And I get into and I allow the forms to serve my pursuit of truth. Forms can serve the pursuit of truth. Forms will never, ever have a shred of truth in them.
Okay.
That's the paradox we're in right here.
Okay.
Well, in the case of the relationship thing that you're saying, where I go to another person and I say, what do you have that's going to, that will augment me? What do you have that will augment me? I'm going to go for that thing,
right.
Whatever it is, whether it's a sexual thing, a social thing, a financial thing, right. Whatever it is. And I'm going to get that, and I'm going to trade what I've got, whatever that is, whether it's security or consistency or what honeydew activities or
right.
whatever it is. So I sign up and do that, and we establish that. Each one hates the other. If they go deep within themselves,
right.
It's disdain. And it's a level of hatred or disdain for the other because I had to buy love. And I don't want to buy love.
Right. I agree with that. Yeah.
I don't want to buy love. And because I had to buy love, we decide that the best we can do is disdain. We can't really have love. All we can have is détente.
Yeah.
And it's going to get into what détente is later. I don't want to spoiler alert on this thing.
All right. Well, that to me explains some things. That was helpful to me. Okay, paragraph 13. Never is your possession made complete, and never will your brother cease his attack on you for what you stole, nor will God end his vengeance upon both. For in his madness, he must have this substitute for love and kill you both. You who believe you walk in sanity with feet on solid ground and through a world where meaning can be found, consider this. These are the laws on which your sanity, your quote, sanity, appears to rest. These are the principles which make the ground beneath your feet seem solid. And it is here you look for meaning. These are the laws you made for your salvation. They hold in place the substitute for heaven, which you prefer. This is their purpose. They were made for this. There is no point in asking what they mean. That is apparent. The means of madness must be insane. Are you as certain that you realize the goal is madness?
To me, this is an introduction. It does it again in there, but this paragraph 13, which is roughly in the center of this whole chapter, is not chapter, but section. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, we're in this thing. We're in this, and it's telling us. What makes me feel like my feet are on solid ground, what makes me feel like I can do a to-do list that's effective to lead to happiness, what makes me feel like I can get onto my knees and pray to God for the right petitions that will bring happiness
Right.
to everyone.
Right.
All of these things is sheer insanity. It's sheer insanity.
And yet we don't think it insanity.
That's what it's saying.
It's saying that, are you as certain that you realize the goal is madness? And it doesn't seem like when you're going through your daily life that that's what your goal is, madness. Is just staying in a relatively insane state all the time based on this I take, and so somebody gains and somebody lost and somebody loses. There's a gain and a lose with every transaction that's going on.
At what point will I have a whole container? Let's say I have a bowl of water. And at what point will I have a full bowl of water by dipping out of this bowl and putting it in another one? And then, because when I dip it out, then I'm 50-50. I keep going because then, okay, this one's full. Now I have a full bowl, but this one's empty.
Yeah, right.
So we got to start over again. It's madness. It's right. They call it moving sand piles.
Oh, right.
And that's the nature of this world, moving sand piles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these are the laws on which our sanity appears to rest. These are the principles which make the ground beneath our feet seem solid. And it is here.
But the thing is, if I wake up in the morning and go, you know what's so great about life? I can move sand piles. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really the greatest thing. I just move them over there. I still got something to do. I can move it right back again. If I woke up with that kind of a sense, I'd be happy. Mm-hmm. I would be happy. Now, the trouble is we're not built for that kind of happiness. So the ego's whole goal is to show us the beauty of that craziness. Mm-hmm. And we do. We do. We sacrifice families on a commute that goes an hour in and an hour back.
Right.
And we never see our kids and we never see our spouse, and we become estranged. And the whole time we're going, you ought to appreciate it because I'm the one that's whatever.
Yeah, right.
Those kinds of narratives dominate. And then the kids are unhappy, and that's even if you got a family. Right. That's even if it's a nuclear family.
Right. And there's not many nuclear families. Maybe it's going to increase again. But
so the fact. Okay. So I'll read 14.
Okay, let's go.
No one wants madness, nor does anyone cling to his madness if he sees that this is what it is. What protects madness is the belief that it's true. It is the function of insanity to take the place of truth. It must be seen as truth to be believed. And if it is the truth, then must its opposite, which was the truth before, be madness now. Such a reversal, completely turned around with madness sanity, illusions true, attack as kindness, hatred as love, and murder benediction, is the goal the laws of chaos serve. These are the means by which the laws of God appear to be reversed. Here do the laws of sin appear to hold love captive and let sin go free. So it's the reversal thing. And the thing I highlighted is it is the function of insanity to take the place of truth. That's what it's for.
Right. That's it. And that list of madness is sanity, illusions true, attack a kindness, hatred is love, and murder is benediction. It's amazing that the ego's way of thinking, which is our way of thinking most of the time, that we don't recognize this reversal. I mean, it's not. It seems to always just be that's someone else's problem, or that's under the surface. It's not.
Take attack.
It's not what I'm doing.
Can you think of off the top of your head attack as a kindness?
No, I can't. Right?
I can.
Okay.
You talked about it in one of the other podcasts.
Okay.
You see someone, you look at them, they fall short.
Oh, yes. Right.
And I want to fix them.
Who's bigger than the other one?
I've got the inside scoop.
Yeah. I need to tell you what's wrong.
I need to craft them into the thing that I think is more acceptable for them, and I interpret that kindness. It is, in fact, an attack, and all you have to do is ask them about it, and they will say, I feel like you're attacking me because you don't. Why? Because you don't like me the way I am.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just one of them. They're all that way. It's common, but we don't let ourselves see.
No, we don't. It's very, it's always, like you said, I'm just helping by giving my insight.
Well, and what another one? Let's pick another one at random. What do you think?
Let me see. Okay. Hatred as love. Murder as benediction.
Murder, benediction. Murder as benediction. Okay. I'll give
At
you,
war, that happens all the time.
I'll give you one on that.
You kill the enemy.
Well, okay. We can get into wars, but I'm going to say that my ex and I were standing in front of the door of our child's nursery that we had prepared for our first child. And we stuck her in her little crib.
A crib. Mm-hmm.
And she started crying. Now, all of the wisdom in the world told us, this is in the books and in the seasoned old salts that had 9 kids.
Yes.
They told us, let them cry it out. Let them cry it out. They're going to scream bloody murder until you come running. Don't give in. Okay. Do you realize that's declaring war on your own precious child? If you're paying attention, everybody does it as what?
Loving
a blessing.
Yes.
We're blessing that child. I don't want to give in to you, because if I give in to you, if I express my love, if I hold you like I want to, and if I express the love to you as I want to, and I keep you near me like I really, really want to, instead, I must murder our relationship. I must murder our relationship in order to bless you. And me.
Yeah.
I bless us both.
Yes.
Because that's called socialization.
Right. Okay.
And we looked at that and we said, not going to declare war. Not going to declare war. So the child stayed in our bed.
Right.
We did the quote-unquote family bed. And we're looking for people that think that that's sane. And there aren't a lot.
No.
A lot of people look in and go, oh, man, you got some weird pervert sex cult going on. What are you doing with your wife? What kind of stuff? Whoa, what? We crossed so many narratives against that whole situation that people's fantasy of what goes on, what's a husband and wife's bedroom? What is a relationship with a child? What is a nursery? What is proper childhood? When the kid, you say, they don't cry anymore. See, I knew they'd get through it. They're broken. They're broken. You broke them. And that child has a certain degree of hatred or despair over what might be considered...
The abandonment.
Yeah, the abandonment.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, good one. Paragraph 15. These do not seem to be the goals of chaos, for by the great reversal they appear to be the laws of order. How could it not be so? Chaos is lawlessness and has no laws. To be believed, its seeming laws must be perceived as real. Their goal of madness must be seen as sanity. And fear, with ashen lips and sightless eyes, blinded and terrible to look upon, is lifted to the throne of love, its dying conqueror, its substitute, the Savior from salvation. How lovely do the laws of fear make death appear. Give thanks unto the hero on love's throne, who saved the Son of God for fear and death.
Simply stated, let's say it. This is the paragraph where it says, the substitute for love is fear.
Fear and death.
Go into yourself and find the truth of that statement of how, okay, if I go back to high school and I got a crush on Terry Gresham or something like that, and it's anxiety. It's day-to-day anxiety, rejection, and hoping and longing, and it's all interpreted. The fear of what I am, the fear of my loathsomeness, the fear that that person doesn't really care, the fear that they are a valuable judge of who and what I am, all these fears. Man, that's called falling in love.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the anxieties and fears are called falling in love. That's true, particularly when you're young.
Or if you go further, the fear a parent or a loved one has for their other. I'm afraid for you. Like you have a fear for your friend. You have a fear that she's not functioning correctly.
Right.
And that and you call that concern. Fear passes as loving concern.
Right. Yes.
Period.
It does. It does.
Okay. Should I do 16?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty
But that's
self-explanatory.
We're blasting through it, but just recognize fear that's what this whole section is on. How do we get fear to substitute for God's love?
Right. The only thing I could say about these kinds of paragraphs, though, is that they become very descriptive of the thing that we've placed upon our thrones. This one that's been lifted up to the throne of love, its dying conqueror, its substitute, the Savior from salvation. How lovely do the laws of fear make death appear. It was like this one with ashen lips and sightless eyes, blinded and terrible to look upon. It's like, I can't imagine that's the thing I have placed upon my throne. And yet that's how it describes it. I mean, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, what's outrageous...
That seems like so over the top. Let's just put it that way.
It'd be too long to say it, but in the wonderful, wonderful Hindu epic, the Mahabharata,
yes.
There's a situation, for whatever reason, there are two, I don't know if they're sons or cousins, I think they're sons, and the one can't take the throne. That's Pandu. He can't take the throne, but I think it's Dhritarashtra, I think is his name. He does take the throne, and he's blind.
Oh, right.
So it's the blind king Dhritarashtra.
Yeah.
And they painted out that all evils spawn out of that brood, that marriage, that blind king. Why? Because to have the ruler blind. That's why it's saying the blind.
Oh,
with
right.
ashen lips, sightless eyes, blinded, terrible to look upon. And you put it on the throne of love. Love is blind. It says it. Love is blind. It's like it's chaotic. It's random. It's like pointless. It's like a fire hydrant. Somebody knocked it.
Somehow you just fall together, and somehow it comes together, and it's okay.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, 16. And yet, how can it be that laws like these can be believed? There's a strange device that makes it possible. Nor is it unfamiliar. We have seen how it appears to function many times before. In truth, it does not function. Yet in dreams, where only shadows play the major roles, it seems most powerful. No law of chaos could compel belief, but for the emphasis on form and disregard of content. No one who thinks that one of these laws is true sees what it says. Some form it takes seems to have meaning, and that is all. Okay, just as an example, let's go back to the Sandy Hook conversation, because there we have par excellence form. The slaughter of 25 innocent people by a random gunman in a certain situation, the form of it is so overwhelming that content becomes neutralized. There's no way you can discuss it, and it's true of so many.
Right.
It's true of love, and it's true of tragedy. It's true of all these. That the content we overlook.
Yeah. In fact, the narratives around it and the loss of innocence, or whatever the storyline is, becomes the main thing that the mind holds onto, and it can't see through that. It just becomes the veil of which you cannot get past to even get to any form of what really happened or what the truth was or anything else. It's blinded.
No, I want to also get to one that has a little bit more pedestrian appeal, because that's such a charged topic. All those conspiracy theories are charged. I don't think they're theories, but anyway, but one where this situation where we believe these things because of form, and we overlook content. It's the form of it, and we overlook the content. The form of it.
Well, I mean, we all went just through the pandemic.
Oh, shit, I've got one. What am I thinking?
Okay.
Going to college.
Okay.
Going to college.
Okay.
You shell out all this money.
Yes.
Especially now. You shell out all this money. You learn something that isn't really useful in the job you get in. You have on-the-job training.
Right.
And then they pay you. And so the form of a college education is that you're being lifted up and moved along in society. And it's totally a symbolic gesture. They'll say, no, we need college graduates. We will not talk to anybody that's not a college graduate. So then you see the insanity of the system itself, that will say, I need college graduates, and yet I fully intend to retrain you once I get you.
Right. The first one was a certain kind of training, and then the next one is a different kind of training. It's all training.
We overlook the content,
right?
Which is the insanity of learning something that's useless, paying money to get there, and then being retrained by people who really want you to operate in a certain way in a meaningless job that hopefully has a nice plate that has your name on it or something, whatever makes you happy.
Right. The right title.
But so we don't pay attention to the content.
Right. Right.
I used to go when I first got into architecture. I took every opportunity. I got a hold of a pattern language book by Christopher Alexander, and I would write. And it's a big old fat book, wonderful, wonderful book. And I would shuffle it off into the bathroom and just sit in one of the stalls and read a pattern language. And he's sitting there talking about the insanity, the schizophrenia of the work world, of the commute, of the fragmentation of families, the isolation of these different people, the desperate hopes and
to have the American dream or whatever it is,
And so he's just emphasizing in there, and I'm working it, right? I was doing my commute. I was bleary-eyed. I felt like someone had just beaten me to death with a big, huge cold macaroni by the time it was 3 or 4 in the afternoon. My eyes just scratched, and God, it was just such a fight. It was a fight. What? To maintain the form of becoming an architect, the form of getting that license, the form, none of which I ever used.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Most architects don't use
and
their
that
license.
happens a lot. It just happens a lot with college education.
But what do we say?
Got to get the college education.
It's the way it is.
It's just the way it is. I know.
Laws of chaos. What can you do?
Okay. All right.
What are we?
Paragraph 17. How can some forms of murder not mean death? Can an attack in any form be love? What form of condemnation is a blessing? Who makes his Savior powerless and finds salvation? Let not the form of the attack on him deceive you. You cannot seek to harm him and be saved. Who can find safety from attack by turning on himself? How can it matter what the form this madness takes? It is a judgment that defeats itself, condemning what it says it wants to save. Be not deceived when madness takes a form you think is lovely. What is intent on your destruction is not your friend.
Okay, again, forms matter a lot to us, and we're willing to destroy what's precious to us in order to preserve forms. Home ownership is a biggie. To maintain certain forms, without understanding or even noticing the content. We can go on, and rather than get into that, because we basically it would get into a social critique. From my point of view, just to get examples of how, whether it's a house or an education or a relationship or a certain way your kitchen needs to look or a certain way your body needs to look, or a certain your access to that community, how you relate to a certain community, it becomes the forms substitute for the content. And it's a real problem we have now. It's a real problem right now in the country. It's a huge problem where I got a senator, I got a congressman, and the form of that is respected citizen, Congressman O'Neill, or whatever, or Senator Johnson, or whatever. And we go through that and not realizing these are bozos. They're just human beings who got in there, they tricked their way in, they had their law degree, they got the right funding, they did whatever, and they get into these situations. But the form is so highly respectable. There's a certain population that, because of the form, a senator, a congressman, a doctor, a researcher.
Lawyer.
Oh, Johns Hopkins. Oh, Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
And you go into these forms. They're forms. And the form substitutes for content. How do you know it's good? Well, because it was in the London Times.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah, we do a lot of that. Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah. So the one thing that I wanted clarity on is who can find safety from attack by turning on himself? How can it matter what the form this madness takes? So who can find safety from attack by turning on himself? How am I turning on myself, I guess is what I was asking. And this is not, you cannot seek to harm him and be saved. First of all, I was whenever this does this hymns and stuff like that, and their little hymns and big hymns and all that stuff, you cannot seek to harm him. It was on sentence 6. You cannot seek to harm him and be saved. Is that my brother? I mean, that's always I'm asking. Or is it, I guess it's my brother. You cannot seek to harm him, the brother, and be saved. Who can find safety from attack by turning on himself? Now the brother is myself.
Okay,
do you know what I mean? This is where my mind goes. It's like...
I just want to use that little confusion to justify my whole exercise in trying to find the silent partner, the secret friend, the self that I refuse to recognize, which is my friend, my gift to lead me through life. I have my own chaotic mind. I couldn't run a DNA process to save my life. But this friend is able to do such. And it's not just empty biochemical processes. Right. That just happens to be one of its tricks, and I would say it's probably not one of its favorite tricks. It just does it because I require it, because I want it, because it's my journey. Right. And it is my partner on this journey. So the self, whether I attack you or I'm attacking myself, I would say ultimately, as it says,
all one.
When you attack the other, you will be attacking yourself.
Right.
And until we understand the reflexive nature of these things, and we experience the reflexive nature. Okay, there's a scene. This is what I thought of. In One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's what jumped into mind. Very powerful, very disturbing. I can't stand that scene, but it is a fantastic illustration of this. Billy is got a stutter, and Jack Nicholson comes in, and he's kind of like testosterone dripping Jack Nicholson, whatever, in this movie, and he finally gets Billy hooked up with one of his girlfriends. Right. And so the girlfriend has him in the back room, and Billy becomes a man. Well, he comes out, and Nurse Ratched finds Billy, and he's suddenly not stuttering. Okay, he suddenly found some confidence. He finally found, based on just basically hanging out with this lady, some self-respect, or whatever you want to call it, some self-love. Temporary, egoic driven, but now he's not stuttering. Nurse Ratched hears that she has lost him. That he now is developing, but she doesn't approve on the way he has developed his self-esteem. Yeah. And so she says, I'm going to tell your mother.
And immediately.
Like this. And he starts this stuttering in spades. I mean, it just really goes crazy. And then he kills himself. He slices himself. He cuts it. In fact, I'd say he probably castrates himself.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Because that's what got him in trouble. Do you see? That's an extreme characterization of what we do. Self-punishment. When I fail in the world in a certain way, you've told me about myself. Right. But it's normal, in a sense, for us to do that. It's nice, quote unquote, in egoic terms, if I can attack someone else. Right. Because then at least I'm not paying the price. I can blame everybody else and I can punish everybody else. But at some point, the person realizes it becomes so ridiculous and absurd. You realize, I'm the problem here. It can't be everybody else. That does dawn. Just reason will make that dawn, and you realize I'm the problem, and the attack turns within. Right. That's why it's saying. It says, how can you be saved by attacking yourself?
Right. Right. Okay.
18. You would maintain and think it true that you do not believe these senseless laws nor act upon them. And when you look at what they say, they cannot be believed. Brother, you do believe them. For how else could you perceive the form they take with content such as this? Can any form of this be tenable? Yet you believe them for the form they take and do not recognize the content. It never changes. Can you paint rosy lips upon a skeleton, dress it in loveliness, pet it and pamper it, and make it live? Can you be content with an illusion that you are living? Can you be content with an illusion
Right.
that you're living?
I know. You don't think you're living an illusion, do you?
Well, it's that short story from high school was Rose for Emily, right? Do you know that?
Mm-mm.
I think it's Faulkner. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Tennessee Williams. But Rose for Emily, some guy, she has a suitor. She's a sort of a wallflower, lonely, strange, isolated lady in the edge of town. And she has these suitors. And finally one shows up, and he visited her a few times. And he came back a few times, and then he went away, and they figured it was just another boyfriend that just never came back again. Well, what ended up happening was, after she dies, they find that she's been sleeping with this guy, and he's dead. She killed him.
Oh my God.
And so they get this, just a skeleton with dried skin on it.
Oh my
that's how
God.
it ends. And his weight is...
That sounds like it might be Tennessee Williams.
Yeah. I mean, it's very sick. But what I'm saying is, again, it is symbolic.
Yeah.
It's symbolic of...
You got to take what is yours, and I'm going to keep it.
Yeah,
you've got nothing, and now I'm willing to just deal with the skeleton. Yeah.
If you can dress it up enough.
Yeah.
Dude, and I'm going to drag you into it. It was really, really funny.
Oh, no.
Is that, Joanna got her hair done yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And
I put it up, though. My usual fare.
Oh, my God. She looked like a movie star. I mean, really. And she came in, and there was me and this other guy.
I can't spend that much time
And she
doing
walks
that.
in, and he looks at her and goes, wow, who's this? It's like, va, va, voom. She's got this hair that's all out to here.
Uh-huh.
And
they styled it very nicely.
no, you have a really, really pretty face. And so with your hair on there, it's so like, wow, I didn't know I was, living with a movie star. There's this, but that's this thing about the forms that against our will.
Yeah, right.
It's difficult for me to judge, let's say a nice, I don't know what, Mercedes or BMW against a Ford Pinto that's rusted out, even though both of them, I use them the same way. They go to the same places. They have the same effective performance for me in my situation. And yet it's going to be difficult to say, well, it's got a Pinto, versus the other. They're functioning exactly the same. Enough said. Same story.
Anyway, as far as the hair stuff goes, I just don't like to spend that much time. And the hairdresser was willing to, so she did a really nice job. That's only for special occasions.
19?
Yeah, 19. There is no life outside of heaven. Where God created life, there life must be. In any state apart from heaven, life is illusion. At best, it seems like life. At worst, like death. Yet both are judgments on what is not life, equal in their inaccuracy and lack of meaning. Life is not in heaven. Life not in heaven is impossible. And what is not in heaven is not anywhere. Outside of heaven, only the conflict of illusion stands, senseless, impossible, and beyond all reason, and yet perceived as an eternal barrier to heaven. Illusions are but forms. Their content is never true. Their content is never true. That's like, makes my head spin, actually, that nothing in my world of form is the content true. I don't even know how to perceive that.
You can take anything, take anything you can look at and ask yourself, is there any relationship at all to the content? And so the illusion, so it's saying that illusions are but forms. Their content is never true. It's not saying that, like if I look at a pillow, it's not saying that the pillow is not true. It's saying that the form of what I see of that
stuffing?
Pillow, the form, no, the form of what I see of the pillow, the real form. And I have to understand this is where it's saying it's difficult because we confuse form and content in this world.
Right.
And if I look at a pillow, functionally as pillows, they're all the same, and they're neither true nor false, and we can get into whether a pillow can possibly be true or not. But even beyond that, a certain pillow with a certain design and a certain effective decorative quality or firmness or whatever it is you want that pillow for, none of that can be true. That, in other words, pursuing form, any pursuit of form cannot be true. It is not possible for a form to be true. It's not possible.
So the form will always leave me empty in a way. There'll be an emptiness.
That's the problem.
To it. Yeah.
That's the problem, is that no matter how wonderful the form is, it has no truth in it. No matter how some forms can be great.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
wonderful, fantastic things.
Right.
They can be tremendously powerful, whether it's Sandy Hook or the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, or a new hairdo.
A new hairdo, right. No, the form, right, the form can be powerfully inspiring, transformative even in a lot of ways, but there's no truth in it. And
right.
so that whatever its effect is, the form, whatever the effect of the form is, it cannot lead to any form of truth whatsoever. You can't find a situation.
Right.
No matter how great the form is. Okay, kid's in a ghetto, he's in Jamaica, somebody finds him and they say, I'm going to put you through school, you got some possibilities there, and he becomes a doctor. Okay. He now does open heart surgery, and they put up a statue of him in his village in Jamaica. And all those are forms. The statue goes up, it's a form. The doctor is a form. The heart surgeries are symbolic importance because it's life and death issues, and it's almost a magical priestly authority over life and death. All of these are forms.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
If you go into all that, the form stays with the form. You can find no place in it where it redeems anything, where it leads to truth. Until the form is abandoned and truth is pursued. Until the truth is pursued.
Yeah, because we make meaning out of a meaningless world.
Right.
I mean, the early lessons are all about looking at forms and saying, I don't know what the meaning of this is,
I mean, okay, if I go to a golf course, and I'm golfing, and I don't golf, but let's say I go to a golf course, and I go to a really great country club, and I buy the right clubs, and I even get my strokes down, and I've got it, and I'm par, whatever you want to call it, and so I'm a great golfer. The forms of it aren't going to do anything for me. But if at some point I decide, you know what, I'm sick of playing the game of golf as a formal, impressing people either with my scores or my clothes or my membership.
Okay.
I want the zen of golf, and I approach it, and I queue up, and I go deeper within myself and asking myself, who's doing this, and how are we doing this? And we start to look what we're really doing in the little ball and what the little ball means. And the thing is, golf does lead itself. There is a content to golf. And it can be a spiritual transformative process. I'm just using it as an example. It doesn't mean that forms stink. It doesn't mean that forms are lousy. It just means that they will never, ever, ever lead to truth. And if I use golf as a means to some form of truth, the truth of what I am, the truth of how I am, the truth of discipline, the truth of being relaxed,
Okay.
the truth of form. In other words, allowing myself to slip into form instead of formalism. I slip into form, true form,
Right.
keep your left arm straight and, line up that and points at that shoulder.
Yeah.
And, the whole golf bit,
Right.
that you go through. And I get into, and I allow the forms to serve my pursuit of truth. Forms can serve the pursuit of truth. Forms will never, ever have a shred of truth in them.
Okay, got it. Okay.
That's the paradox we're in right here.
Okay.
20?
Yeah.
The laws of chaos govern all illusions. Their forms conflict, making it seem quite possible to value some above the others. Yet each one rests as surely on the belief the laws of chaos are the laws of order as do the others. Each one upholds these laws completely, offering a certain witness that these laws are true. The seeming gentler forms of the attack are no less certain in their witnessing or their results. Certain it is illusions will bring fear because of the beliefs that they imply, not for their form. And lack of faith in love in any form attests to chaos as reality. You see, forms are not the problem. There's no truth in them. The body is neutral.
Right, the body is
Form
neutral.
is neutral.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's all our perceptions of them as to what we...
but what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? That's the problem. If I join the golf club in order to one-up the Johnsons or to
Right.
establish myself in the community, it means one thing. If I join because it's the form I must adopt in order to be a Zen golfer and to explore the nature of the body-mind connection, it's a totally different situation.
Okay, let me just say, their forms, okay, the laws of chaos govern all illusions. Their forms conflict, making it seem quite impossible to value some above the others. Okay, each one rests as surely on the belief the laws of chaos are the laws of order as do the others.
Each form, yet each one, that each one refers to forms.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't
each one.
refer to people.
Right. Okay. Each one upholds these laws completely, offering a certain witness that these laws are true. Okay, I see it now. Paragraph 21. From the belief in sin, the faith in chaos must follow. It is because it follows that it seems to be a logical conclusion, a valid step in ordered thought. The steps to chaos do follow neatly from their starting point. Each is a different form in the progression of truth's reversal, leading still deeper into terror and away from truth. Think not one step is smaller than another, nor that return from one is easier. The whole descent from heaven lies in each one, and where your thinking starts, there it must end. So all these forms, are a descent away from heaven. It keeps it, so long as I'm focused on the forms and getting something from my forms, whether it's the form of my own body, or the form of another, or the form of work, or the form of anything, a form of better weather,
If I accept my limitations as a created being, mere man, all that stuff, faith in chaos must follow. In other words, de facto, I've chosen my rule book. My rule book. There's no, you can pray yourself, you can't pray yourself out of it. As soon as you see yourself as limited. And the best way I know to say that is to recognize that even in my worst situations, I have, I'm just talking, this silent partner. And if I really go into what that silent partner is, the way that silent partner is able to, you call it out, manufacture bodies, relate to other people, serve my apparent needs, including crying and letting toxins come out in my tears. Whatever my need is as my identified self, and I've identified myself with a body, this thing will help me do this because this thing wants me to get to God. And whatever form I'm in, whatever form I choose, it will support that. Now, if I realize I have such a powerful agent with me.
In other words, it's not going to usurp your free will or anything else. It's
Never.
It's going to always work with you from the point of where your belief in your world resides, and yet still moving you towards, particularly once you decide that you want to know more about what heaven is or God, your relationship with God or anything else, it will move you towards that avenue through the brother, through what happens to the body, like sickness and things like that. It will actually use all of those things that I've decided I need in a way in order for me to, quote, wake up.
It'll use whatever forms I've adopted.
Yeah.
And, There's a lesson that we did recently, which was, I will be still an instant and go home.
Mm-hmm.
And in there it says, give your brother a break, and go home. Let him take a breather.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, this thing that I'm describing will be in the illusion with me side by side,
right,
for the long haul.
Right. We keep the Son of God imprisoned, through our thought
for
system.
a trillion years. But the thing is, it does it willingly and lovingly. There's no coercion, no compulsion. But without this entity, I would not be able to. And then, as Mel Gibson said in one of his things, what makes us so important here? There's kind of this battle between forces.
Yeah.
What makes us so important? And you start to wonder, why me with my flawed thinking and my confusion and my inability to see around corners? What makes me important? Ladies and germs, we're the whole game. We are the salvation of the world. That's why we're important.
Yeah, that's right.
We are the salvation of the world. In other words, my choice with the secret friend, my choice with the invisible partner, my choice in finding that thread, that mycelium that connects me with you and the rest of the world,
right,
and not sinking into the forms of the disaster that are unfolding in my life, whether it's health or money or blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, right.
And to seek, no, that friend, because no, we can get there. But in order to get there, I have to drop the idea that the form I'm experiencing is particularly important.
Yeah, that's the value. You have to reverse the value, or at least give up your value, temporarily, so that some other thing can
allow other proofs to happen.
Yeah,
that's called a miracle. Allow other proofs to happen.
Yeah, those holy instants. Yeah, I agree.
And the last line of that, and where your thinking starts, there must it end. Reason can get you out of here. It's not just miracle.
Right.
Start thinking straight.
Mm-hmm.
And put it this way: if you're thinking, you are thinking straight. Because this thing we do is not called thinking. It's reacting. It's surfing on narratives.
Right. Well, I'm glad you clarified that, because my thinking is not, not clear.
That thing we call thinking is not thinking.
Right.
Thinking is reason. What's really, really going on here?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Example, please forgive me for this. Sandy Hook, 25 people, kids or whatever the numbers were, shot.
Yeah, it was 26.
The coroner determined that it was just too bloody and that nobody gets to see their child. Use reason. I'm not saying whether it happened or whether it didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying use reason, ladies and germs. Don't be undone by the narrative.
Right.
Maybe so, maybe not. I'm not saying that.
Right.
A parent will kill to see their child.
Right.
No matter what state they're in.
Right. I agree.
Okay, so that's just one little glitch. Reason. If I say, okay, my degree from college, how valuable is it? Well, I'm really glad I went to college. Let's reason this through. Did it really do you that well? That relationship where, reason will lead us toward God. It will lead us toward happiness. Reason will. But it will also lead away from all forms. And if I'm convinced that the forms in my life are important, then reason will seem destructive.
Yes, because it will lead. It just keeps you in the laws of chaos with the ego. It just keeps you there, right?
Okay, so 22. Brother, take not one step in the descent to hell. For having taken one, you will not recognize the rest for what they are, and they will follow. Attack in any form has placed your foot upon the twisted stairway that leads from heaven. Yet any instant it is possible to have all this undone. How can you know whether you chose the stairs to heaven or the way to hell? Quite easily. How do you feel? Is peace in your awareness? Are you certain which way you go? And are you sure the goal of heaven can be reached? If not, you walk alone. Ask then your friend to join with you and give you certainty of where you go.
There's that friend.
Join with the friend.
Right, with a capital
Join
F.
with the friend.
Yes. And the whole thing about peace is peace in your awareness. Are you certain which way to go? I mean, we just did the other day too. I want the peace of God. And then you're supposed to examine all the things that you want in place of that peace, what you value. It's like, well, if only this was fixed, or if only that was taken care of, and if only my friend did this. Whatever they are, all of those are, blocks to my awareness to peace, because I think that these things have to happen before I will have peace. And so it keeps me away from it. It's very frustrating to find that out, because when I did it this time, I actually was really sunk into it, and I could almost cry for my inability to say, and all I could do is like cry to Jesus and say, please, you got to help me here. I feel like these are going to save me if this will happen this way or that way to make it better.
Yeah, because you don't trust God, because God's going to screw you.
Yeah.
You don't trust him.
So is peace in your awareness? Are you certain which way to go? And are you sure the goal of heaven can be reached? If not, you walk alone. Ask then your friend to join with you and give you certainty of where to go. And that's the answer. Ask then your friend to join with you and give you certainty of where you go. Because of myself, I can't. That's what I found out trying to do that particular lesson. I go, well, there's no way I'm going to get to the peace of God without joining with a friend.
There's a problem with some of this. Some of the trouble is that if a priori, in other words, before any of this even begins, I don't trust God. I've got all the proof that God screwed up when he began this whole process, and people die, and there's disease and sickness. So I have a deep distrust of God. So when we get to a point here and we say, trust God, it's like you could be fighting against a lot of conditioned suspicions about God. That's why this idea of the friend. And I've said it before, when I first started doing the Course in Miracles, the book became alive, and it actually leads us. Even right now, we're dealing with the war against yourself, and we're dealing with war with this whole Putin thing that's going on right
Ukraine
now. So there's a confluence, and also in other areas. It actually is.
It's kind of like what we're trying to do internally is also trying to be worked out externally. It's kind of interesting to see those kinds of things.
So just to recognize, where's that coming from? It's orchestrated by the friend.
Yeah.
Okay. The friend is all the resources. The friend. I don't have any resources. And this is the point, to realize, if I, with no resources, am going, how are we going to get there? I don't know how to get there.
Right.
You're going to immediately go to the ego, and the ego is going to say, well, it's all a disaster anyway. So, the best you can do is get what you can get and get out.
Yeah, that's right. That is the ego.
That's the ego. That's what it's going to say. Get what you can, cut your losses, and scram, you know. But the other way of it is to say, wait a second. My very existence proves out that there is this presence, this friend, because I don't have the ability to create any of this.
Right.
And so then you start to realize the mom, the dad, the brothers, the sisters, the work, the disasters in your life are all orchestrated for only one reason, for enlightenment, to get back correctly. And if I can drop the forms of those things, wow, Phil, you knocked out your teeth and now they look like hell. If I can drop the forms of these things and look at the content of getting back to God, orchestrated by the friend who doesn't care a fig for forms.
Right, it doesn't. Right.
And that, but I gotta say,
it just wants you to reach heaven. It wants you to remember heaven.
And when I reach out for that thing, now that thing is not the Holy Spirit. But the minute I grab it and I say, you, like this, Holy Spirit's there. Christ is born. The minute I grab it in that way, in other words, it will lead me through illusion and disaster and illusion for 1 trillion years. But the minute that I look at it and say, wow, buddy, we're in this together. We're in this together, and I'm the lightweight here. You're the heavy.
Right.
You're the heavy. At that instant, Holy Spirit comes in and commands this situation.
Right.
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it too. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you.